Hi, and welcome to today's seminar on how to leverage the new Norwegian quota law to create a more diversified board. My name is Camilla Olsen, and I am stepping in for Ellen today as NVCA's ESG resource. For today's seminar, we have invited 3 speakers. We have Lise, which is a partner at Visindi and co-founder of Styrelisten. We have Meryn, which is co-founder of Boardiverse, and we have Christian, which is partner at Visindi. I said Styrelisten, right? Great. So during the seminar, feel free to ask any question, both digitally and in person. But for your information, the seminar will be recorded and published on NVCA's YouTube channel. So you know that your voice will be present there. Okay, Lise, the floor is yours.
Thank you. I am actually a partner in Wiersholm, and not Visindi, but that's fine. That's fine. So yes, we're here today to talk about board recruitment and board diversity. And so why I'm here, because I'm normally a lawyer. I work with M&A and capital markets transactions. But about 7 years ago, I was working in another law firm together with Elin Maklövdal and Meryn, who are my partners in Styrelisten. And there are 2 things that happened in the same week. So one of them was that we had a client looking for a board candidate. It was a board candidate within retail. That's kind of the main criteria. I want a name for a board candidate with a retail experience. And we were sitting over lunch talking that, we should find a woman to play into this role. Because that would be like diversity in the boards, and we're female lawyers, so we're interested in that. And we couldn't think of a single candidate that we knew who had retail competence, which made us kind of startled, because we thought that we had a fairly good overview over people, but most of the people that we knew were lawyers and people with finance backgrounds, because they are the ones that we normally meet at our work. So that's the one thing that happened in that week. And then the other thing that happened in the same week was that I was working on an IPO. And then when you're on IPOs, you're a Norwegian public company, because that's a requirement in order to list on the Norwegian Stock Exchange. And when you're a Norwegian public company, you have gender quota rules. So the same rules that will come into play for private companies next year already applies for Norwegian public companies, and has applied for, I think it's 23 years or something like that, 17 years. So, and then what they were looking for, which is quite common, is that they were looking for an independent board candidate who had finance background, because then they could fill both the independency requirement and the audit committee requirement. And although I did know quite a lot of people who could fill that role, they were kind of just looking around in their network, and then they found someone who had already filled that role in several other companies before. And there's nothing obviously wrong with that, but it also kind of showed how the board recruitment very often happens. You ask someone you know whether they know anyone who can fill this role, and then you kind of pick that person. And so, long story short, we decided, Elin and Meryn and I, to always be ready to to give a name of a female candidate who could fill these board positions when we were asked. So we started compiling our own list, but we very quickly realized that our network was quite narrow, in the sense that we didn't really have a lot of diversity in the competence of the people that we knew, or the women that we knew. So we we went out to our network, and then we asked the people that we knew who had a network beyond our own to contribute with some names that we could just have on our list, so that we could play those into board candidates requests when we got them. And we very quickly realized that we got a lot of input for good names, and all of a sudden our list had 55 people on it. And all were very high quality, competent women who could fill a lot of different board candidate requests. So then we decided that this must be a need that a lot of companies have and a lot of people have. So we decided to make our list available for everyone. And that's the start of Styrelisten. So fast forward 7 years, we are still a non-profit organization, and we still do it in addition to our regular jobs. So we work in, we're lawyers, and then we do this project on our as a hobby. And then we have this database or a list of board candidates that we match with board requests. So we have a mission, which is to enable companies, nomination committees, and owners to find qualified board candidate options. Now, there are 2 key points to this vision. One of them is access. So our main point is that we provide names of candidates. We're not researchers, we're not headhunters, we don't vet and we don't interview the candidates for your specific board position, but we increase the pool of candidates that you can choose from. So you come to us, you say kind of the profile that you're looking for, and we provide you names. And this secures a cost-efficient and very smooth process where you can, if you have your own list of 5 board candidates, you can increase that by maybe 5 or 10 more. And then the other part of it is that, or the other key takeaway from this vision is that it needs to be qualified board candidates. So we're on a mission to increase the board competency and quality of boards. We want the boards in Norway to be diverse, and we want the number of qualified women for the boards to increase. But we're not here to do any favors. So all candidates need to have competency that is relevant for boards. And that's important. So, just checking my notes here. And that also means that, so this is Styrelisten, just in short. We have a candidate database. I'm going to tell you a bit more about that after. And we give input for board positions. We also have matchmaking events where you can, as a company or as an industry player, can have requests, and then we can have events where we match many board candidates with many different inquirers of board candidates. And then we also have competency development and relationship building for the candidates. So why is this, why are we here today, and why is this relevant now? So in the last summer, 2023, the government had a proposal to have gender quota rules not only for public companies, but also for private companies. And that means that the rules that have previously or now and has for the last 17 years applied to public companies in Norway, so stock-listed companies, with 40% gender requirements, they will eventually apply to close to all Norwegian private companies as well. And the rules are, so it's 40% of each gender. And it's, you should note that this is each gender. It's not that you need to have 40% female, but it needs to be a diverse board. So it needs to be 40% of each gender. This today applies to Norwegian public limited companies, as I mentioned. As from December 2024, so by 1st January 2025, the same gender quota rules will also apply to companies who have more than 100 million NOK in revenues. And then the government's or the rules will gradually apply to a bigger and bigger sphere of companies. So by 30th June 2025, it will apply to companies who have 50 employees or more. 30 June 26, it will apply to companies with 30 employees. 30 June 27, it will be applied to companies with 70 million NOK in revenues. So regardless of the number of employees you have, it will apply to companies with more than 70 million NOK in revenues. And then by 30 June 28, it will apply to companies with more than 50 million in revenues. So that's quite a lot of companies in Norway that this will apply to. you should note that the rules, you can have a single board, and that could comprise any gender you want. So if there's only one board member, there will be no, there's no minimum board member requirement. Which means that if you have one member, that can be male only or female only. If you have, it only starts applying if you have 3 members or more. So how do we fill these board positions? I know that the other speakers today will talk a bit about more of the statistics and how many board members we will actually need. But I am not concerned that it will be difficult to fill these positions at all, actually. This is just Styrelisten. There are many other kind of lists and databases, but Styrelisten today has 600 board candidates. 64% of them have board experience, so that's either from private companies or public companies. There are 40% who have C-suite position experience, and about 20% have experience from listed companies. And we have, as I mentioned, we're not doing any favors here to anyone. So we have minimum requirements for what kind of competency you need to possess in order to be qualified for Styrelisten. So you either need to have board experience, you need to have currently have C-suite positions. So you need to be kind of in a leadership or management of a company. Or you need to have some other specialist or operational experience which makes you board ready. So the point is that we don't want to have a database full of people who are not senior enough to fill board positions. It's important that the candidates can actually fill board positions and are competent to give something into those boards. Having said that, boards in Norway come in a number of different forms and shapes. So you have everything from the big listed companies to startup companies who are also looking for board competence, but will very often look for specialist and operational competence and experience, maybe more than board experience. So that's why it's important that we have dynamic and flexible criteria, but there are minimum criteria to the board candidates on our list. So how did we build Styrelisten? So the 600 candidates have mainly, I would say about 90% of them have been recommended by someone else. So either someone on Styrelisten or someone who knows someone and who we meet in our daily lives and who will say that I have a board candidate for you. You should check out this one. And then we talk to them and we will then register them in our database. And then we're also helping the different board candidates or assisting them in creating a professional board bio, investing in relevant upscaling and network. But the main point is that if you don't have kind of the operational experience from your working life, then it's more difficult to kind of prove where your value add will be into the board. So most are recommended, and then you register for the database and you fill in a form and provide your CV. And then in the 7 years that we've been doing this, we've helped 161 companies. That's as of yesterday, I think. We've shared about 304 names. So that means that more than half of our candidates on our list has been provided to some board somewhere. About 22% of the companies that we have worked with are private equity or venture companies who are looking for board candidates for their portfolio companies. And then about 25% have been listed companies who are looking for board candidates. And I think it's important to note the 25% because in these days, we're talking a lot about how this is kind of a forced hat on the different boards. But this shows that 75% of the companies that have come to us and asked for board candidates are not required to have female board candidates, but they're actually doing it by choice and because they're looking for a competence. So the recruitment process is that you have an open board position and you contact us, and then we have a meeting or we have a dialogue to have an identity, to identify a profile. And it's very important for us that we will never provide a name if the only thing you say is that we're looking for a woman who can sit on a board. Because that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't help the board and it doesn't help the candidate who are actually played into that board. So we will always challenge you to identify a profile. What competency are you looking for? How experienced should that person be? Should the person have an industry competence, a separate set of skill sets? So that's very important. So we spend quite a lot of time on identifying a profile if that's not something that you've worked on before. And then we give you candidate input. That can be, depending on the profile that you're requesting, that can be 3 names or it can be 10, depending on what matches we get. And then in this between 4 and 5, that's where we leave it to you to vet, look at the CVs, who do you think are relevant, who do you want to talk to, and then you take the contact and assess from there. And then hopefully you get a new board member. And I think one of the most important parts from our experience on how you can get a good board candidate is to obviously assess the company's needs. What do you need? Is there a specific industry that you're looking for? Very often what we see from working with PE and venture companies, we very often see that finance is typically very well covered in the board by the owners or the private equity company, while maybe you're looking for an industry specialist or who has an industry experience that you're looking for. And which is very good because then you can find a complementary skill by looking for other candidates. What's also important to note is that what we've also seen is that you kind of make an ideal list of a board candidate that is very difficult to fulfill, and it would be difficult for everyone. So it's important to also make the criterias and skills that you're looking for wide enough to kind of be realistic. But we have been able to find the most narrow skill sets that you can imagine. So we're very welcome. We welcome the challenge. Yeah, and this is just how you can. We always looking for new board candidates. So please feel free to recommend board candidates or ask us for candidate input. And that was me. And I think Meryn is next.
Hi everyone. My name's Meryn. I'm the co-founder of Boardiverse. This is myself and my co-founder Jyoti, who sends her regards. She can't be here this morning. But just to give you a bit of a background on Boardiverse and how we started. So our company umbrella is really focused on reimagining the global workforce. So we do that through, how we work, how we hire, who we hire. We are really about focusing on how do we kind of change up the status quo of business. We know we really need to right now. So what we found was we've focused a lot on recruitment of diverse talent. So when we say diverse, we mean all kind of marginalized groups, people with different backgrounds who maybe grew up here, international talent that has moved here. We know from our own experience as well that when we're hiring people into companies, often they get in the first sort of, maybe they get an entry-level position, if they're lucky, maybe a middle management position. But we talk about the fact that it's very obvious once we get in there that there's a glass ceiling for diverse talent. So we thought, okay, well, what can we do with the skills and knowledge we have? Why don't we start looking at kind of disrupting or making that change from the top? So that's how Boardiverse was developed. So many of you probably know these stats, but we're going to keep banging on about them until, we really shift the needle on these issues. So 40% is what we need at least for women on boards. Currently, men on boards represent 84.5%. around 13,000 women need to get appointed on these boards if and when the law goes through. And leaders with diverse ethnic backgrounds, 0.22% in Norway. So often what we find as well is, it's not just in Norway, but across the board. When we talk about quotas, we notice that, people, essentially white women, are the primary beneficiaries of these roles. And we know that, at least in Norway, it's, at 2025, we're going to have 30% international people with international and migrant backgrounds. And that's not talking about any other diversity metric. So we really need to do better on this front, especially, we're moving out of oil and gas. We're trying to be more globalized. We've got more up and coming startups that we want to scale and go global. So these are key fundamentals of having more diversity of thought, more competitiveness in the market, which is, again, we know the opportunities, we know the stats around this. We know that when people are looking at companies, especially scale-up companies, they're going, okay, well, what does the board composition look like? And people are more inclined to work in organizations where there is diversity at the top. We know there's more innovation. We know the financial returns are attracting talent. These are things that, again, they're not unfamiliar concepts, but we keep talking about because, again, until things shift, we need to raise awareness around this. So here's a really great report that was just released by BlackRock, and it talks about, just focusing on women alone, women being represented increases the return on assets by 60%. So again, if you need more stats, we will throw them at you because this is really fundamental with the work that we do. So again, if we talk about, one of the things that we talk about is systems change. And we believe that Norway and the Nordics are one of the best placed markets to create that systems change. So we know we need to do better by people. We need to do better by planet. And, our logic is, or our case for change is, that if we keep doing business the way that we've always done it, we're going to keep perpetuating some of the same issues. So we need to better take care of people. We need to better take care of planet. And I think business in general needs to be reinvigorated, reimagined. One, so we can have a better quality of life. Two, so we can really think about, okay, well, what is the legacy that we're leaving for future generations? So systems change is really why we decided that Boardiverse, with the skills and experience that we have, we should start there. So we're really about disrupting from the top. For myself, I started my first board position when I was 23. So I was very lucky. I'd already been working for 5 years. I started in advertising, started my own company when I was 22. So I was really lucky that I had these kinds of opportunities. And it was through that one appointment in the Chamber of Commerce and then just showcasing my skills and having this sort of vim and vigor and enthusiasm that I think, I noticed as well from that time, so it's been over 10 years now, that I realized boards aren't rocket science. And often we talk about, we see boards as this big and lofty thing, and can I actually do this? Do I have what it takes? And, we absolutely believe that when you equip people with these tools, often, it's people who, we're set up, especially for people with minority backgrounds or diverse backgrounds in some way, we're not set up that, how do I say this? We're not set up in a way that it's like, we have imposter syndrome because of the system. So what we're trying to say is, okay, if we start shifting some of these things, these mindsets, we'll have less imposter syndrome because we'll have more, the way we do business is going to be more set up for our success as well. So this is Boardiverse. What we do is we work with board CVs, we do board matching, and we do workshops and training. So one of the things, what we notice is a lot of the CVs look exactly the same as resumes. And really what we need to focus on is, what are the core competencies? Are there unique skills that you have? Are there specialization tools, as Styrelisten was also saying? What kind of leadership acumen do you have? So really focusing on these things and the core achievements that you've you've done through your career that can really focus on, putting your best foot forward when you go for a board position. So we do the board matching as well, and we're really excited that just yesterday we got 2 board positions for one of our clients, FAD. So we're just starting out, so we're absolutely pumped about that. And one of them came from one of the women that was in our first cohort of the Boardiverse workshops. So we also thought, going back to, okay, it's not really rocket science, but what is the kind of business acumen? What's the strategic acumen that you need to have? How do you harness your specialist skills as well? So what we thought is, okay, despite the fact that there's probably many programs out there, how do we do something that kind of condenses it down, gives people exactly what they need, partner with guest lecturers who can also talk from their experience, especially in the Norwegian market where we are, but also on going from the Norwegian market to thinking more globally as well. So we just celebrated a couple of weeks ago the end of the first cohort. And it was it was amazing, because I think for us, we had all these women with really top-notch backgrounds. They had PhDs, they're in leadership positions, they have, all kinds of qualifications. And it was crazy that they were a lot of them were saying, do I have what it takes to do this? We're like, absolutely, yes. This is not about, unfortunately, we have to talk about the fact that this is not tokenism. But of course we can find those women. Of course we can find people with diverse backgrounds that can, really, really have a competitive edge at being on a board. So here is the cohort and some of our facilitators. So we are very proud. And we have the next one coming up in February as well. So just in wrapping up, I think the big thing for us is thinking about, okay, well, what can we all do, to again, shift the needle on some of these issues. So I think it's about setting the bar. So when we talk about setting the bar, setting the standard, it's like everyone in this room, everyone online can say, okay, well, who's really represented? What voices are represented here? And start thinking about that. We often talk when we're running workshops about having a Jedi mindset. And Jedi stands for justice, equity, diversity, and inclusion. I won't go too much into it, but there's this little clip that we show sometimes, and it's of Yoda talking with Anakin Skywalker. And basically he's saying, in order for him to get past a hurdle or a challenge, he says, you must unlearn what you have learned. And that's for all of us. We need to go through this unlearning. We're conditioned in a way to go, maybe if we're women or from a minoritized group, it's can we actually do this? Do we have what it takes? And again, that's systemic barriers that have been working against us. And then on the other side, it's, okay, if you are in those positions, how do you, instead of having a scarcity mindset, think about how do we increase the pie? How do we have a more, abundance mindset, I guess you could say? And say, okay, well, how do we bring people in? How can we expand? How can we have a growth mindset to have, a growing company, a growing organization? So that's really important for us. Again, I don't know why we even have to mention that this isn't about token hiring, but of course, if 50% of the population is women, just starting there, then surely there's got to be 40% representation of women who are well equipped to be able to do the job. We have them in our network. We're very proud of it. When we first started Boardiverse, we did a collaboration with Startup Lab and Forskningsparken, and they said, okay, we've got, we can do the launch of it with you, which was on International Women's Day. And they said, but we can only fit 100 people into the auditorium. And we had over 100 people. We had people kind of sitting on the tables and everything. We went, okay, wow, there's a real market need here. So, and we had all these people join our database, and looking through their competencies, we were just blown away. And it's why haven't we seen all this before? So we're very excited about that. Again, I think one of the most important things in not just creating this change, but again, going back to systemic change and how we want to do business better, we really need to go outside our networks. It's very easy to just be, get on the blower, as we say in Australia, and say, hey, have you got someone that you know, and da-da-da-da. And sometimes that network effect can be really positive, but it can often leave us in an echo chamber of not looking outside maybe our ethnicity, maybe, our gender, so on and so forth. And so it's really important that we, have a Jedi mindset, a broader mindset in being able to go, okay, well, maybe there's someone else outside, our network, our school, our, cohorts that could be really well placed to help take the company where it needs to go. And then again, get expert support. Companies like Styrelisten, we're here as well. I think, it's really tricky. And I've only been in recruitment for the last couple of years. And I see that, at first I was like, okay, it can't be that hard to, do all of the processes involved, but it is a full-time job. And, the fact that we're both Styrelisten and ourselves, we're doing it on the side of our core businesses as well. It's taking a lot. And, we also help with the, it's not just the board CVs, it's the preparation. It's how you, talk with, not only from the candidate perspective, how you engage in these interview processes, but it's also from the board perspective. How do you shift the mindset in the board so you can create systemic change, so you don't get this thinking around, oh, this is a token hire and we're going to treat it like this. So it's a mentality shift on all fronts. So here's some testimonials from some of our fantastic champions. And I'm just going to say the one from Karen Dolver from No Isolation. I love it. We condensed them all, but I couldn't condense this one. So if you hate having meaningful discussions and hearing valuable opinions, you should avoid having women on your board. If you have any sense at all, you want your board to be as diverse as possible, because #science. So I think that kind of sums it up. So thank you so much for having me. And good to see you. Reach out.
My name is Christian Heiberg, and I'm here to talk about how to select the best board candidates and establish their credibility. But then, who am I to talk about this? Because I am, as you see, white, male, and have turned 50. But our company has, since our inception, worked with the different sectors in our society. And these are some of the assignments that we worked on so far this year. But it goes to show that we have since 2004 worked with these sectors because we believe, and it's enriching for us, and we believe it's good to see and learn about the society, looking at from different point of views, different angles. There are different mentalities, different cultures, and different organizations. So we also want to move candidates between the different sectors, not only between the different industries, but also between the sectors. That can also help reducing the biases or the prejudices that we often have, the preconceived ideas. And we also asked some students taking a master's degree to look further into this. And what we've found also is that there are some, in terms of diversity, equity, and inclusion, there are some sectors that are far ahead of others. So we also, this summer, we looked at diversity in boards. And it's especially within the public sector, in terms of gender, that they've reached the furthest. As you've already seen, the stats is that there's still a long way to go. Actually, the quota started out in 1981. But in 2003, one started for the public listed companies that there should be a 40-60 legislation. And in 2008, that was then approved. But we still have a long way to go. And if you look at Capital, 2 months ago, there was an article saying, in terms of chair of the board, they're naming 23 companies, listed companies. There's one woman, the rest are men as chair of the board, not chairman of the board. So we still got a long way to go. We have a candidate base in terms of management positions of almost 40,000 people, candidates, profiles. 36% of them are women. But since 2018 up to today, we have recruited 42% to management positions. Last year it was almost 50%. And if we look at our candidate base for board recruitment, 42% are women and shown interest in having a board position, while we have recruited 55% or appointed 55%. So this means that we are actually actively working on recruiting women. So we recruit more women than have shown interest. So what is, with the legislation at hand, what are the companies or the owners now looking for? Of course, to find the right candidate and the best candidates, and where are they? Some aspects are generic, irrespective of profile or background, whether you're male, female, age, and so on. And others are more towards women. Our belief is that you don't necessarily need having taken a board program or a diploma, because experience is the most important thing. And especially with new skills coming up, such as AI, cybersecurity, you have different kinds of technologies, wind, battery, solar, and so on. So then you don't necessarily have to be a leader in order to be an interesting candidate for a board position. So then again, experience from the sector or from the industry, not necessarily always needed. And whether can I be a professional board member? Having more than one, or maybe up to 5 board positions, yes, that's possible. But there's a huge difference between being in top management and being a professional board member. You're, of course, not as close, but so you need to stay relevant in order to keep those board positions. We are recruiting. We have 4 offices in Norway. We are recruiting almost 400 positions a year. So in terms of motivation, that's where the differences are. But when we recruit 400 positions, we get insight and knowledge about what women are looking for. There's not a simple answer as to what they're looking for, but at least some of the issues that arise are capacity, what is required of me, availability, the workload versus the responsibility. It's not often that well paid, and am I able to manage and balance that towards the rest of my life? And also, that was also been talked about earlier on, the competency and the experience. Am I valuable? My knowledge, is it needed? So what we do when we interview, whether it's for a top management position or for boards, we always ask women, are you interested in a board position? So we start with that, but then we also spend time coaching and explaining. So motivating into the process. We are clear on why we find you interesting. So about your expertise, why you are relevant. We also spend time explaining what's the role and responsibility. So in order to give security and predictability. And there's a huge difference between here. Trust and chemistry is of vital importance. So one can miss good candidates during the process if one does not spend enough time together with the candidates. And that not only us as a headhunter, but also our client spending enough time with the candidates. Because in a board, you're there because of the shareholders and not because a person wants to is hiring for his or her own management group. So again, that's why trust and chemistry is important. So what's the challenge then? Targeting women, especially after new legislation coming up. When we approach you, am I quoted or am I qualified? That will be the main question. And looking at the other one, is she quoted or is she qualified? So what's very important now is how the owners and the companies respond to the new legislation. If they go for a thorough process, trying to find the best talents and the most suitable candidates, then we will remove some of the stereotypes. But if they go for a quick fix solution, then we are at a standstill. So how to create credibility, both for the candidate, but also towards the rest of the board and also top management. Has to be an open, thorough process, and we will always challenge. Because we all have biases, we all have prejudice, but we need to be aware of them. Because something that you're aware of, you can do something with. But biases that you're not aware of does something to you. So we challenge. So ideally, we would recommend a board evaluation. And the purpose is, of course, to improve the collaboration within the board. But it's also to raise awareness of the role and the responsibilities, the expertise that is within the board, and also possibly identify gaps. There's also a question about succession strategy, and also, of course, the cooperation between the top management and the board. So there's a possibility to identify a gap. If you don't have time nor the money to do so, you still need to go through a recruitment process. And it's quite a generic process, but what's very important is at the beginning of the process, in terms of the analysis and search. We will conduct interviews with all the board members that are currently on the board and also the CEO of the company to get a holistic view of what the challenges are, but also what's good about the company. And then, based on that, we identify a profile, which Styrelisten also talked about. So this is a generic profile. But here you can see we have identified competencies. We also weighed them in terms of, you can see here. So there's a discussion. And this will always be the base case. And this is a starting point when we do our search. What are we really looking for? And we, as I said, we will always challenge. So we have internally with our researchers, we have criteria. So it has to be that when we come up with a list based on this requirement profile, diversity is in there. Candidates that are not in our database, we always have to find. And also present a wild card or two. But our experience is that going through such a structured process, then you both find out what are the gaps, where are the competencies. You build credibility towards the existing board, and not at least also then this gives credibility. So when we call you as a candidate, you know that you are wanted, you're needed, and you're not quoted. So just a few recommendations and tips from the study that we did earlier this year, diversity is complex. And it's not enough just to set diversity as a goal, but something that you continuously have to work on. And there are two types of diversity. Demographic diversity, which is what we see, gender, age, ethnicity, and it's the cognitive diversity, which is experience, ideas, and perspectives. So, being on a board, what do you mean by diversity? So the last then is, in order to meet the requirement of the end of next year, start the process now, if you want the best and the most relevant ones. If you have the time, do a qualitative board evaluation. At least ensure a transparent and objective process, identify and establish a requirement profile, look at what you have today in the board, what is needed, and also remember, because when you look at the needs, it's often what we need now. But we will always ask the question, okay, but in 2 or 4 years' time, what shall this person have helped or taken the company to? And always spend time with the candidates. Don't wait, keep them warm. And to have as objective process as possible, it's recommended to use external advisors. So that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. It's been really great to hear your insights on this topic. I wish you all a great day ahead. Thank you.